Hello and welcome to some of my friends read comics. We've got Chris.
Archiving.
We've got Vin.
Sorry if I took you by surprise, but sometimes the power of love can be overwhelming.
And I'm Kia. Hi, welcome to the show. Chris, was your quote from the robot? I think it was.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't recognize your quote.
Mine were actually from the What If number 9. What if we read that?
Oh, because I didn't read. Okay, well, let's get to. So today we're reading Agents of Atlas from with our boy Jimmy Woo, with his name all over the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the Agents of Atlas. We're reading the series from 2006, which I guess was like the first big reboot of them since like forever ago. And they've had a few series since then.
I think even like a tangible reboot, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. And it's by Jeff Parker with art by Leonard Kirk. Have we read anything by Jeff Parker?
We haven't. Jeff Parker, is kind of a journeyman, but he seems to like kind of go into like the all ages kind of area. He was very popular with this book. He also wrote all the Batman 66 comics, including one of my personal favorites, Batman 66 meets Archie. But that's the kind of wheelhouse that he's kind of traded in. And I think even at the time, like Agents of Atlas was like this is like just a good fun swashbuckling comic of the 90s when everything's stuck in like Marvel Civil War. So like that's kind of where he kind of made his ground.
Yeah, it doesn't really tie into much of anything that's going on.
No.
You only see like Dum Dum Dugan from S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's kind of it. Yeah. And then the artist Leonard Kirk,
Just
one of these guys.
journeyman also, like, just seems to have been around in comics since the early 90s, does stuff. I saw he did, what was it, Dinosaurs for Hire from Malibu Comics, which is just the covers, like a couple dinosaurs, like phones and guns. I'm like, that sounds awesome.
That's all I want.
I know.
All I want.
I'm not judging. And
Yep.
I think
You say we haven't read it. Maybe it's great.
It could be. It could be the one Malibu comic that's great.
Yeah,
whoa. Better than Nightman?
All right. We haven't even introduced the full episode yet. So we're
already
reading
getting the hot takes.
We're also reading
Nightman
Agents
was
of
a
Atlas.
TV show. It lasted 2 seasons.
Oh
Vince.
my god.
Fighter of the Day Man. Whoa.
That's a different Nightman. So we're also reading their first appearance, not Nightman's first appearance, Agents of Atlas's first appearance in What If number 9 was it?
Yeah.
I thought maybe this was like an option to read or something like that. I just forgot about it. So I didn't read it. So we might start with kind of like talking about the differences and who they are. Actually, okay. And then we're going to get into Amazing Spider-Man number 12. Oh my God, Joe. A full year of Spider-Man. We did it. We're on the last issue that we're going to do. And then we're going to announce our next long read. Oh, stick around till the end of the episode, kids, if you want to hear what we're going to do for the next long.
Blatherskites.
Wow.
I'm excited.
That's a hint. No, it's not. We're not doing Darkwing Duck. Okay. So let's start with this What If issue. I didn't read it. It'll give us a good idea of like who this team is, and then we'll be able to compare from there.
Yeah. So the What If issue, What If is a comic, and we've covered this before, and there's a new Marvel series coming out that's like, what if such and such would happen such and such? So it's like, what if Peter Parker had saved Gwen Stacy? Those kind of things. And this one is, what if the Avengers had formed in the 50s? So I'm like, okay, cool. This is like going to be like 1602. The, Captain America, Iron Man, everybody's just going to get together in the 50s, and we're going to have some 50s things. And that's not the case. But there's a shout out to the Squadron Supreme.
Boys.
They're like, well, the Squadron Supreme can hop dimensions, so we're going to use this look at dimensional thing to see what if there was a universe where the Avengers formed in the 50s before us. And they find Jimmy Woo and a few other characters. Jimmy Woo we know from the Ant-Man and Ant-Man, Ric Flair. From Ant-Man and Wasp, and also the WandaVision show. And in real life, what had happened is that Marvel briefly was called Atlas Comics. I believe in the 40s it was Timely Comics, and they changed the name to Atlas Comics, and then Marvel Comics in, I guess, the 60s or thereabouts. And they had a bunch of superheroes that weren't Captain America, and weren't before like Fantastic Four and such. And there was like Jimmy Woo, there was the Human Robot, there was Venus, there was, I guess, Marvel Boy, and It was like, well, what if all these characters teamed up and they saved Dwight D. Eisenhower from something? And I'm on board. It was a fun comic. He had a villain named the Yellow Claw who like started some shit. And then so Jimmy Woo and all his friends met up. They teamed up, very similar to the Agents of Atlas comic we're gonna talk about. There was a guy named Skeleton Face, I think, or Skull Face. He was just a skeleton, but and he pulled Dwight D. Eisenhower was on a golf course. He's like, I'm totally safe, and I'm like, no, you're not. There's snipers around. I know this is not safe for you. And the skeleton came out from underground and kidnapped Dwight D. Eisenhower. It was great.
Oh my god.
It was so much fun. It was very swashbuckling. It was like from the 80s, I guess. I think the editor 70s, late 70s. Is that when this was?
Yes.
It was a ton of fun. And then the back of the book, it said that Roy Thomas was batting around like a Marvel Boy and a couple other friends comic. And they couldn't figure out a place to put it. They were going to put it like in Marvel Premiere or one of their, anthology books that we've read, like Marvel Comics Presents or whatever was around at that time. And then they just jammed it into What If. So it's weird for What If because it doesn't have the Watcher. And they save Eisenhower. They save the day. But then Eisenhower says, yo, the world is not ready for superheroes. So y'all need to just be quiet and not talk about this. And then Iron Man was like, was that like another universe or was that our universe? Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, it was a very like DC Comics because we've talked about Squadron Supreme, but like DC Comics was known for having at the time infinite Earths, as we've read Crisis. There was Earth 1, which I think was the sort of normal continuity, but then Earth 2 where everything was aging normally. So like Batman was very old by the 70s and I think died. That's where the Huntress came from. So it was very much like, oh, we're looking into a different Earth through the JLA's telescope. Like that happened all the time to the JLA. And that's kind of what happens in this issue. It is a lot of fun too, because like Beast is like, oh, Gorilla Man, I like the cut of his jib.
That's good. That's good. How crazy is it that there are infinite Earths and yet number 1 and 2 are the stars of that story? How nuts is that?
Yeah. Well, that's why Earth 616 is the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
They're much much different that way. But yeah, it's a fun little story. So I guess we should probably mention, and Vince kind of alluded to it. These are real characters that existed in the 50s. Although the one that's in this story but isn't in Agents of Atlas is 3D Man. He was created by, I think, Roy Thomas as a superhero in the 50s, but he was created in the 70s as like a retroactive hero. So he's not a part of the Agents of Atlas. He was a character they introduced later. But Venus had her own series called Venus. The human robot was a one-off character in, I think, Marvel Premiere number 11. The Marvel Boy had his own series. Venus, I already mentioned, Namora, and Yellow Claw had a mini series that lasted 4 issues. So Jimmy Woo didn't have his own series, but he was the hero of Yellow Claw.
I see. And did the series Agents of Atlas also exist in the 50s, or is that all made up?
No, that's all made up. That's just kind of like an homage or possibly even a trademark protection of wanting to use the Atlas name again 60 years later, or making sure that all these characters remain in circulation, or just a fun thing that they were like, let's just look at our 50s history again. But they didn't call themselves the Agents of Atlas. They just said that they were a bunch of 50s superheroes. And the thing is covered in editorial editor notes of like, this is from this thing. So it was like super helpful. I was expecting to see like 1602, like, Iron Man being like, I'm in the 50s. It's Happy Days time, like Fonzie shit. But it wasn't that. But it was just really well written. Like I knew who every character was by the end of it. It was like 34 pages, I think. They did good character pairings. Everybody got their own moment. So I knew who Venus was and Gorilla Man and Robot by the end of it. I was like, oh, I like all these guys. It's good.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. I mean, and that's Roy Thomas. I don't know how much we've talked about him on the show, but like Roy Thomas was kind of famous for, he was the like historian at Marvel who he created the Invaders in the 70s, which was a series set in the 40s of Captain America, Namor, Human Torch, all the like 40s heroes. So like he was always digging through Marvel IP. And on the one hand, people kind of gave him a little bit of a hard time, but on the other hand, like I think he was completely right because it's, he knew as early as anybody did, it's like anything you create for Marvel is owned by Marvel. So like hold on to anything you actually want to make money from.
Yeah. But to answer your question, it's the exact same thing with the Invaders. The Invaders wasn't a concept. It wasn't a team name in the 40s. That was invented, in the 70s. It's the same thing that happened with the Agents of Atlas. They're like they were all disparate characters, but they never teamed up.
Right.
Definitely not to this scale.
Wow.
Right. And the title, Agents of Atlas, it's because they were Atlas comics in the 50s. Mm-hmm. Like that's literally just a reference to like what would have been on the cover if you were to buy Venus #1.
And I do want to clear, I don't think Roy Thomas actually wrote the comic. If it was somebody, I think their last name was like Don Glut or something. Yeah, Don Glut. But I think the editor was Roy Thomas, and also came up with the concept.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's such a Roy Thomas idea. Like there's no way he didn't come up with this.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we're ready to jump into the series proper. Unless there's anything else that needs to be said about the what if issue, but I think a lot of it does have some parallels, so I think it'll come up again.
Yeah, it's weird that it's weird that getting into this it like deviates. So like there's only one adventure with these characters where they team up. And they reference that, like, they had an adventure in the 50s, but it's not this. And it's like they saved Eisenhower. Now we're in Agents of Atlas 1. And they talk about that. But it's not the same adventure, which is very weird.
And you guys might remember, although you may not, when we did Avengers Forever way back in the day, Avengers Forever had a team where they discovered Vice President Nixon was a Skrull, and that timeline was erased.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a Busiek moment, though.
Yeah, that was Kurt Busiek literally just pulling all of these guys out from in 1998 or 1999 or 2000, and just bringing them all back to wipe them out as part of Avengers Forever.
I think that's what made me want to reread Agents of Atlas, because I have read this and I honestly do not remember anything. And my barometer for that is when they have an issue that says, "I think there's a traitor on the team." And I'm like, I don't know who it is, even though
I knew exactly who it was.
I had never read any of these, and I did not know any of these characters except for what I knew of like Jimmy Woo from showing up wherever else. So this was a big old
fresh. Okay.
Completely fresh. I didn't even read the What If, baby. I'm totally fresh.
As my I don't know to call them friends of the show, Square Roots podcast. You're a baby fresh eyes.
I'm a baby fresh eyes. I like that. Shout outs to our friends who I've never heard of.
Square Roots podcast. They review classic RPGs. So if you want a book club podcast that does RPG shows, and also one of the hosts has been on Your Stupid Minds, so that's why they're friends of the show.
Excellent. All right, let's really jump into this issue here. So we do start with it's Gorilla Man, but he's retelling the story of this saving Eisenhower in '58. Jimmy Woo assembled them, and it's a really fun kind of battle where they're going to rescue the president. And just like a fun, very classic, very golden agey kind of action sequence. And they rescue the president. He's being pampered by like beautiful women and everything as this bomb's going off. It's just like a really silly kind of thing. And it sets the stage so nicely because I instantly just like get the vibe of this comic where it's like we're on adventures and it's going to be kind of silly and fun and it's okay.
Yeah. I love Marvel Boy when he's like, "Oh, I'm reading the president's mind. He's fine."
They invite the girls onto the ship as well to get them out of there. It's great. So the Gorilla Man though is like retelling all of this because he has been called up to S.H.I.E.L.D. because Jimmy Woo had this was back in the 50s, right? Jimmy Woo after that has had a desk job. He has been doing nothing since then. He has been essentially just like, a good guy working for S.H.I.E.L.D. But all of a sudden he decided to like go on this mission on his own that he had been researching, and he like put his own secret team together, and Jimmy Woo went and like the whole team got killed and he got burned to a crisp, and they don't know anything about it because they can't talk to Jimmy Woo. And so they're like, and the only thing that was left with him is a picture of the original Agents of Atlas team. And so, S.H.I.E.L.D. went looking for Gorilla Man. He was the easiest one to find. He still works for S.H.I.E.L.D., I think. And they it's a great premise right off the bat. It's like, if something happened to Jimmy Woo, why did he even do this? What's going on? The agent so Dum Dum Dugan is there. I think most people have seen Dum Dum Dugan. He's the guy with the big red mustache in S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well,
and the nice the hat.
Is.
He was in Captain America: First Avenger and the TV show Agent Carter.
Was he played by Neil McDonough?
Was he Neil McDonough?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he was in the movie.
Yeah, I love Neil McDonough. But yeah, this was also at the era where Nick Fury had gone underground. So Nick Fury had disappeared from Marvel Comics. Mostly because Bendis thought that Nick Fury was too easy of a plot creator for Marvel Comics. Where Nick Fury would be like, hey, Hero X, come in here. We've got a mission for you. Which happens a lot in the Brubaker Captain America stuff that we've read.
Which, I mean, on the one hand, it's not completely wrong. But on the other hand, that's kind of what they're there for.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a dickish thing. So, that's why Bendis could have the power to say, no more Nick Fury for the entire line. And that's why Dum Dum Dugan's doing this and not Nick Fury.
Yeah. So
this is before Secret Avengers, where he goes to the moon and whatever.
Oh boy,
we're not going to read that.
No. So Dum Dum Dugan's kind of just overseeing it, but the real guy who's doing the nitty gritty of this investigation is a guy named Derek Kanata. He is a Wakandan member of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he's doing all the investigation for this. And he ends up being a pretty big part of he's the audience surrogate for sure. Jimmy Woo is on life support. They might have to put him down and everything. And Kanata says, can we at least keep him alive while I'm doing my mission? Who knows? They are watching videos from the agents' helmet cams, trying to put everything together. And they can't really do much, but they're like, hey, Gorilla Man, whose name is Mr. Ken Hale, was it?
Hale, yeah.
And they say, hey, can you stick around in this section of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while? And he's like, yeah, I'll go to the bunks or whatever. And then at night, he goes and he summons the robot to his location. It's M11, the human robot, shows up, busts out Jimmy Woo, and they carry his body up into a UFO that, all the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are awake now. And they're like, I think that's Marvel Boy's UFO.
My panel of this whole series is the panel of M11 throwing Gorilla Man, who has a assault rifle in both of his arms and both of his legs.
Yeah, he's I need to shoot everybody. He says, robot, hold me up and just run forward as fast as you can. It's great. It's a great panel. That's
such a clever use where I was I was on board right from that moment. I was like, yes, this is great.
It's every team book has to have that one non-human kind of character, a monster or a robot. This team has a robot and a monkey. It seems overpowered, but I think that's a sign that it's going to be good. It's designed for me. All right, so. They get beamed up into the UFO thing, and Jimmy, his burnt up crispy body gets put in this rejuvenating pool, and he gets out and he's younger now. Hooray! That's the cliffhanger. And there's a really cool afterword that I really liked as well here. What were you going to say, Vince?
Well, to me, I think that me reading the What If issue before this really helped. Because it gave me context for all the characters. When that spaceship shows up, I think they just say Bob, and I'm like, oh, that's a Uranian spaceship from Marvel Boy. I know that. I don't feel like if I come into this cult, and I did come into a cult without the What If issue last time I read this 15 years ago, and I was like, okay, who's that? I don't know. But I feel like having that background of the What If really helped. I don't know if this book on its own gives you enough context for that, but Kia, you're the baby fresh eyes.
So if I can say,
knowing there's a space alien on the team.
I didn't know there was an alien on the team, really. I kind of knew of Marvel Boy. I'd read Grant Morrison's series of him at some point.
That's a different
but it's
Marvel
just
Boy.
I don't know exactly. And so I was like, who's this Marvel boy? I don't know. But they're like, Bob, spaceship. And I'm just like along for the ride. I'm like, we're getting new characters busting people out. I didn't know if they were going to reassemble the whole original team. I didn't know if a different team was going to get assembled. I had no idea where anything was going. So I was just kind of like open to it. And I was like, we got aliens now. Cool. So that's me. But I get where you're coming from as well. I think Vince in general, I think we've come to realize that you want to know more when you see something.
I think I do. And I think I was surprised because that What If book, because I don't usually like team books, especially with just like heroes that don't seem to have like logical connections to each other. That What If book, I think in one issue did an incredible job of either doing its character pairings or doing its like right lines to express like who everybody's deal was, why they mattered, what they cared about. Like really well, better than
this.
Like Squadron Supreme did that good. I've been astonished.
This book takes its time doing that, I think, and I can get that. Like I understand being not too pleased with that. But I was mentioning the afterword of this comic. It's a letter to the reader from Mr. Lau. We don't really know who Mr. Lau is, but I like this letter. It was just kind of like stuff all about the past and the future, and yeah, I don't know. Overall, I ended up really liking this first issue, and I was 100% on board.
Yeah, as I said, I liked it because a robot held a gorilla so it could shoot 4 assault rifles at once.
That's all you need. Yes. That's all you need.
All you need. So,
and we should say Leonard Kirk does a great job. Gorilla Man is like such a star in these issues. Yeah. He looks so great.
He does.
Gorilla Man is the star of this book. I think he is like Kanata is the audience surrogate, but Gorilla Man is the damn protagonist.
He's your thing. Like he's kind of a sourpuss.
Yes.
And we haven't mentioned, so the way Gorilla Man got his powers is basically he was like a mercenary who killed a gorilla. And then as the gorilla's dying, it like touches him and like gives him the curse of being a gorilla.
Yeah, it like turns back into a human, and then he turns into the gorilla. And he's like, "Oh no, the curse has been passed on to me." We get his origin in this issue as well, and somebody's telling it or whatever.
Gorilla Man tells it. Yeah.
What an origin, huh?
Yeah. It's great.
But it's like, because he was a famed hunter or whatever, and somebody was like, hey, you should go get this wild game. And he like did it, and he was like, oh no, I'm cursed.
And then we find out later who put him up to it. So anyway, issue 2, we're on the spaceship. Well, actually, we're back with the Wakandan guy.
Yeah, we like get confirmation that it's not Marvel Boy from S.H.I.E.L.D., which later we find out like they're wrong. But they're like, no, he lost his powers or something. Quasar has his nega bands or whatever they are. So like it can't be Marvel Boy. Oh, but they do talk about how Marvel Boy went crazy and like tried to rob a bank.
So yes, I can speak to this because I've read those Fantastic Four issues. So George Perez in the 70s was drawing Fantastic Four. They have I think a 2 or 3 part story where they say it's Marvel Boy. Tries to rob a bank, he has solar powers, he goes crazy, and then dies at the end of that storyline. And so you're like, wait, what? Because as Reed Richards even points out, it's like, then Quasar gets those bands that he has, and then he has like a 15, 20-year career fighting criminals, and then he's in Annihilation and dies as part of Annihilation Conquest. But I don't think that had happened yet. No. But anyway, they're like, so Quasar exists, so who is this?
So yeah, anytime they do go into more detail with Marvel Boy's origin and what's been happening to him and how he's still alive and all that, that's where I was like, you could have told me less. I would have been happier with less here.
Well,
I mean, that's okay.
Yeah, don't you want to see the Eternals on film?
No. God, no.
I really like. That's the first Marvel movie that I'm like, I have no interest
in
this.
Because we find out later he's part of the Eternals.
Oh my god!
You know what though? It's a testament to this book that I actually like gave a shit about all this. Because when we read Infinity War or one of the Thanos books, and they were like, he's from Titan, one of the moons of Saturn, and this is his brother Eros, and I'm like, And I'm like, I do not give a shit about any of these royal people.
Give me a reason to care. How do you eat? Do you eat funny?
Yeah,
That's all I want.
that's the thing that I also had with the
Marvel Boy does.
That's the thing I had with I had with also the Eternals trailers. Like, I do not care about like high fantasy people in costume just like slowly talking to each other about their like drama. I don't care. And I think it's a testament like Guardians of the Galaxy, and even this. And I'm like, oh, I actually care about the like Uranus like outpost that Marvel Boy destroyed. Like, this book worked for me in a way that like all of those Thanos on Titan things never did in the 70s comics we read. So
well, and I do think it does a good job. Jeff Parker does a good job of explaining how he kind of fits into everything in a way that still makes him special. But anyway, so the Wakandan guy goes into he goes back to Jimmy Woo's house, and he thinks he's going to basically just be sifting through an empty building. But then M11 and Gorilla Man and everybody is there.
Yeah, Jimmy Woo is there and he's alive and everything.
and young.
Yeah,
and young, but he has no memory of anything after 1959 because that's the last reading that Marvel Boy had on him, and that's what he was able to recreate in his restoration chamber.
That was his last hard drive save. He's got it back.
I love when they talk about this, because then Gorilla Man's like, "Can you turn me human?" And he's like, "I don't have a save of that. I'm sorry." It's great.
Look, I didn't save Scum before I met you. Yeah. Why would I have that?
We do need to mention kind of what Marvel Boy's powers are. Marvel Boy, aka Bob, aka the Uranian Man, aka the Alien. We'll call him probably all those names here. Yes. But he is able to like project images of like what he wants people to see. And so like when Kanata came into Wu's house, he had other SHIELD agents with him outside, but they didn't hear what was going on because it was hidden from them. That sort of deal.
He's being choked by M11's like tentacles, and he's like calling for help, and everyone runs in like, "Oh, you're fine. Okay, see ya."
Yeah. So does Marvel Boy have any relation to like Captain Marvel, like Genus Vell or any of those Captain Marvels, the Kree ones, or?
No. So I don't know if we'll ever do them because Captain Marvel's solo book stinks. But so Captain Marvel,
I liked one of them.
The Death of Captain Marvel was good. I enjoyed that one we read.
Yeah, that was a good one. So Captain Marvel was a Kree soldier, and that's what Marvel Boy that Q was referencing is also a Kree.
Okay,
alien.
So there is a Marvel Boy that is Kree. Okay, but that's not this one.
But this one is not Kree at all. So he is an alien from Uranus, but we find out, or Uranus, whatever. We find out
he's funnier if you say Uranus.
They call it Uranus and make a lot of butt jokes in this comic. So
they make a ton of butt jokes.
Yes, Gorilla Man laughs every time Bob says it, and he's like, "I don't know why that's funny to you." So he is the original Marvel Boy from the 50s. He's the first one. That's before Marvel Comics even exists. So then Quasar is his legacy character where he gets the quantum bands. So he's sort of similar to him, but he's not Kree at all. Like, it's completely different. Because if you remember, Rick Jones and Captain Marvel had the Nega bands. Yes. That was Captain Marvel's thing. So it's very similar. It's very confusing.
Okay, so the quantum bands are different than the Nega bands.
One is Kree,
Listener, you don't need to know any of this.
You don't.
It's stupid. These movies have made me actually like kind of in this comic podcast that we've been doing for 6 years. I'm kind of like still like trying to figure out who the Kree are. I'm almost there.
The Kree, like honestly, alien stuff in Marvel just can get so convoluted, and I don't know if they're good guys or bad guys or what, but they're there.
They're the soldier aliens. They're almost always bad guys, but again, Captain Marvel was Kree and then helps everybody. That's all you need to know about that guy. But he's not in this series at all. This is the pre-Captain Marvel, and he's also just preserving copyright and trademark for Marvel. Mm-hmm. But pre any of that, you have Marvel Boy, which was Atlas Comics. So anyway, that's
Grant Morrison's Marvel Boy that's supposed to be good.
No, it is good. So anyway, they investigate this mystery. They're trying to figure out what's going on. At some point, and so they take how do you say his name? Kanata.
Kanata. That's how I was saying it.
Yeah, they take him with them to the spaceship.
Yeah, he essentially joins the team. He's like along every ride here. I don't know what happens to the other Shield agents, but he's also like talking to Shield, and they're cool with it. And he's like, "Hey, I'm just here to observe, and I'll let y'all know, whatever, blah blah blah." Yeah.
It leads to a twist that again, as a reader, I was like, I see this coming, but So Kanata is like, oh, I can actually help you guys if you're trying to like put the old team together. I might know where Venus, another member of your team, is, and so they're like, oh, okay, we should go there. So they do, and Gorilla Man, who again is our Thing type character, or like every man who is a gorilla, is like, hey, what the hell? This is where I am from. Where I got gorilla powers.
This is where I got cursed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why'd you bring me here? And it's because that's just where Venus is. She, we find out. I guess we can just kind of like jump to why she's there, which is in the next issue. Well, although at the end of this issue, Jimmy Woo kind of goes aside, and we run into the Yellow Claw. Oh no! But we'll get into more of that next issue. So Venus, talking about like her origin and how she not origin necessarily, but how she got there was, Gorilla Man at one point asked her to like see if she could help him turn back. And like they came back to the spot even to like see what's going on, and she was like, "Nope, sorry." But while being there, she encountered all these like villagers in this small tribe or something, and she said, "You know what? Let me help me bring peace to this area because it's a conflict and everyone's fighting with each other." And she brought peace. But just when she mentions that there's peace, it's the Yellow Claw and all of his foot soldiers. And they fight, and it's not the real Yellow Claw. It's just a robot. Dang it.
I love it.
Again,
I love Doombots.
Strong Golden Age vibes. Oh, yeah, Doombot vibes as well. Yes. All of this is great. Then they talk for a little while about, like, they go doing some more investigating and in some files and everything. They talk about how the team originally formed. And kind of like you were saying, like, what's the connection with these people? And Jimmy is saying, like, well, that when I was putting together the team for Eisenhower, I didn't know who to pick, and the team just kind of came to me in a dream. And they're like, well, and he says something about like, yeah, Namora was also in my dream, but she wasn't available, so she gave me the robot M11 as a gift instead. And then he finds out that Namora is also dead now. Bummer. And she's like, oh, okay.
Maybe we can get her daughter named Marita, and I think Kanata's like, oh,
yeah.
Too. She just died.
I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say anything. It's awkward.
Was she part of the New Warriors that got killed at the beginning of Civil War?
She was, one of the ones that she gets brought back as part of Nova, but yeah, she's killed in Civil War. That's
why, Kanata's like, oh, that was recent too. I'm not gonna say anything. Good. So then they follow some leads around for a little bit. They go into like a hidden cave thing in Central Park, and they laser down some walls, but nothing's happening. Jimmy Woo wants to go to a diner, and so they go to a nice place. This is my quote of the week here. When Marvel Boy is eating, and he just like, it's disgusting. Like there's this weird tentacle thing coming out of his mouth, and it like grabs his food and like sucks it back in. And his line is just, excuse me, my esophagus extends when I eat. I'm just like, okay, I like that.
Like, don't forget he's a weirdo alien. I like that.
Yeah, don't forget. Yeah.
I thought your line was going to be Jimmy Woo being like, we can't afford to eat here.
Oh, that's good too, yeah.
He goes to this diner he knows from like 1959, and he's like, oh my God.
Oh, what's happened to the price?
Like, $16 for a sandwich. This is out of control.
Honestly, I'm with him. It really is out of control. But M11 just like gets up and starts walking away because he senses that Namora is not dead. Oh my goodness. So they're like, all right, let's head over there. And on the way there, Marvel Boy tells them his origin story, which we won't get into, but I do really like that he has like this psychic band where he can connect to everybody. And so everybody didn't just hear his story, they got to like live his story and experience his story. So they know it easy. It's harder for us to understand.
It was confusing to me because I was like, I guess I wasn't paying attention. I'm like, why is Derek Kanata in the Marvel Boy costume? Like, did Leonard Kirk messed up? Like the first,
it took me a while at first, and then I was like, oh, and now the Gorillas being Marvel Boy, and now like everyone's taking a turn being Marvel Boy. It was beautiful.
Yes, yeah, I thought it was cute. I like that as a flashback device. They had a good flashback device in issue 1 or 2 where they're like, how are we seeing this? And they're like, oh, this is Wakandan technology. We can see Gorilla Man getting his powers.
At some point.
Yeah, they hand wave things really well in this book.
Yeah. There was one point where I think M11, the robot, is able to pick up the residual sound waves from people who were just in the room and then recreate the image of what they were talking about or whatever. I was like, oh my God, I love that. It's great.
Yeah. Sure.
So we are. Okay. So they go down underwater. But unfortunately, Namora is like a totally dead corpse in like a sea coffin thing, and that's too bad. And there's bad guys there. Oh no. So issue 4, Mr. Lau is watching from the shadow. Dude in the shadows here, and there's like other people. Mr. Lau is talking to somebody else, and I don't know who these dudes in photographs are, but we find out that it's just a holographic sort of projection of a dead Namora. Namora is, in fact, alive. Hooray. The robot starts unfreezing her slowly with like a heat beam while giant sea crabs attack. And they have to fight sea crabs. And the fight's going a little rough. But then Namora comes to life. And hooray, they win the fight. She joins the team. Everyone gets caught up. Hooray.
I do love the moment because Venus isn't like not fought anyone. She's mostly just been topless. We haven't really mentioned Venus very much.
We haven't mentioned that she is topless constantly.
Yeah. Yes. She's just like topless and just like, oh, everyone fall in love with me and like that. But then she starts fighting those sea crabs and they're like, wow, way to go, Venus. And she's like, read your mythology. I was born of sea foam. I was like, that's
we haven't really mentioned her power at all. She basically just like woos men so much that they're just like, oh, they fall over, and it doesn't even have to be men. They just like they feel it, and they're like, oh,
right. Well, and we find out in the next issue like what her Namora pretty early on is like, what's going on with this Venus character?
But Venus is also blonde, and Namora is also blonde, and Venus doesn't like that, so she turns herself to a redhead so that there aren't two blondes on the team. All right. We do also get a really nice team moment where Jimmy Woo is like, listen, for me, this is yesterday, but I know for y'all it's been like 50 years. And they're like, we don't care. You're the best leader ever. We'll join you. Hooray. Which is great. Then they start going out to scout all the potential leads that Jimmy Woo has found, which is basically just every company that has Atlas in its name. Because we hadn't actually mentioned this. That original raid that like Jimmy Woo, old man Jimmy Woo was like going for was on the Atlas Foundation, which what is that? Why? Who? What? And so they're trying to figure that out. And so they're going into everything that has the name Atlas because it's such a generic ass name. And they're like, wait a minute, these actually are all fronts for Atlas. And they go to like Atlas Biotech and Atlas Nursery. Like at the nursery, there's like a giant plant that's alive. There's zombies at Atlas Cemetery. There's like dinos at the biotech place. Yes, Atlas Orphanage. It was great. It's just like mission after mission after mission. I really love these scenes of just like, so you could write a whole 6-issue mini probably about any of these missions.
Yeah, it reminded me of Next Wave when they had like page after page of just like crazy shit they're fighting.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It did remind me a lot of Next Wave. There was a lot of that in here.
Yeah. But the team is getting tighter and tighter until there's one mission on a boat where, which is what you're talking about, Chris, when Venus uses her powers and Namora's like, well, weird. They take a break in Fiji and they meet an old man who's hawking some little statues. It's nice. Everyone's relaxing on the beach. Oh no, it's the Yellow Claw. His clay warriors are growing big.
That was cool shit.
And they have to fight again. I liked it.
I love when he's like, look at this little innocuous thing. It's going to become a villain of some sort. And I'm excited.
Perfect. Perfect. We do find out the Yellow Claw prefers the Golden Claw because he thinks Yellow Claw is racist. You know what?
He's not wrong.
I'm okay with that. I'm not wrong at all.
He does drop some hints about like the important thing is true names, like that's the password to figuring out what's going on is the true names of things, which is good foreshadowing for the last issue.
And then he gets away, of course, in the middle of the fight and everything. But after the fight, Jimmy Woo tells Kanata he thinks there's a double agent on the team.
Who could it be?
Who
Let's
could it
let's run through them. Gorilla Man, probably not. The alien guy, maybe, but probably
Maybe.
not.
Venus, the god.
Possibly.
Well,
I
she's
did think it was
yeah.
Venus. I did think it was Venus going in, just because she's very intense. I don't know if we haven't done her backstory yet. That's where we're
no, that's next
We
issue.
haven't. Yep.
Yeah.
Next issue, we find out Namora. They just brought her back to life, so probably not.
Probably
If
not.
she's
And
been
then
a
a
double
robot.
agent this whole time, she's not doing a very good job.
Or she had done a very good job.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
and then
the human robot who never talks. Yeah.
It could be anyone. So the backup for this issue as well. I loved the backup for this issue. It's just a list of a bunch of the Atlas companies they visited, and it's all written from Gorilla Man's perspective of what they ran into. Atlas Dairy turned out to be one of the clean operations, which made me laugh. And then the description of Atlas Comics, which they went to visit, was also just hilarious. I love it. It's I didn't write it down, but just go. This is a great book. I recommend reading it.
Yeah.
But boy, that list.
Yeah, I do love all the, and Hickman does a great job with his FF stuff. But like, I love all the one-page like interstitials. They do such a good job in this series of like building characters and like getting you to care more about this stuff. Like, it's really fun. Like, I think issue 2 or 3 had Venus flashback where they're like trying to like track down who Venus is. They're like, there's no records of her until like 1900, and then she starts like going around, and then like she's in the 60s, she's part of the Love-In, and then she disappears again, and we don't know where she went. And so like it's a lot of fun. It's like trying to fit that into, and then they actually do know like the Venus series from the 50s where she's like a reporter or something with VNS as her initials. So it's a lot of fun that every issue has this like little interstitial. Then we get to issue 5, which is probably the weakest issue, but it's still good. It's still good.
Yeah. So they're at like a shipyard. There's and then some like Shield agents show up, and I think, do we find out that there was like a Shield chip under Kanata's skin that was leading them there that he didn't know about? So he's not the double agent. This is just for Shield showing up briefly for a second. But Venus uses her powers to calm everyone down, and finally Namora can't hold it in anymore. She's like, she's a monster, and she tells the story about the sirens and all that. And we get all of her backstory about how she just wants to be good now. She just wants to be all
right. So we find out Venus isn't Greek god Aphrodite Venus. She's actually a siren from Greek mythology who has been brought to life and like made a whole person through like some sort of magic spell type deal.
Yeah.
Sirens mythologically sing to they're naked hot ladies who sing to Scrooge McDuck, and then Scrooge McDuck is like, ooh, they've got money. And then I remember this. I had this on one of my cartoons for DuckTales.
Sings to Odysseus, classic.
No, Scrooge McDuck, pennies, nickels, quarters, dimes, come to us while there's still time.
So, all right. So, I guess Venus
and Odysseus
is hearing...
famously is like, tie me to the main sail because I want to hear this, but I don't want to be able to actually do anything.
I don't want to actually go bang these things that are going to drive me down under the ocean and murder me. Yeah.
But I want to hear it. I don't want to just put earplugs in. So she's a siren. Then somehow, what happens that makes this happen? Somehow Marvel Boy links everyone.
So I think Venus like hears Namora talking about this, and she starts wailing because she's like remembering this past life that she was trying to overcome, and this way, like as much as everybody is affected by her song of beauty, everyone is affected by her like crying song and like wailing, and Marvel Boy is like going like it's boggling him out of his mind, and his mind link thing hooks everyone up, and everyone starts seeing everyone's memories for a little while, and everyone sees Wu telling Kanata it's Kanata's memory, but it's Wu telling Kanata about how he thinks there's a double agent, and he says, I think it's M11, the robot. Um, and so, after like all this is happening, Marvel Boy destroys the robot. Namora attacks Marvel Boy for doing that because that robot was like, hers. Then the gorilla attacks Namora to stop her, and everything is going crazy. And Venus is like crying about being not a real goddess, and Jimmy Woo goes to give her a great pep talk about how, that's, you are a goddess now after everything that you've done. And she sings, inspires her to sing the most beautiful song ever and calms everyone down. Very nice. And while everyone's getting calmed down,
Yeah, she sings a horny song that everyone is able to enjoy.
I don't remember the lyrics to the song, but I imagine it was probably horny.
Which Marvel Boy broke the link, but it is funny because Gorilla Man's like a romantic partner is a gorilla.
Yes, it's because everyone is dreaming about what they. Yes, their love. That's. I did notice that. Like, is he dreaming about a gorilla?
That was wild. I was like, what? Yeah. Wait, what?
Yeah.
When a gorilla does the gorillas.
He's been a gorilla for 40 years, I guess, but like that's his taste now. He's only attracted to gorillas.
Yeah, I don't know. But while they're all dreaming, M11 is slowly rebuilding itself, and it is like about to attack. But then Jimmy stands in the way and asks M11 to sever his connection to the Yellow Claw, and M11 just does. And so we see, like, we go back to the Yellow Claw's place with Mr. Lau, and they're like, he cut off the signal. You don't have control over him anymore. And Mr. Lau's like, I never had control over him. Go. Okay. Or the Yellow Claw, or whoever. I get confused between these two dudes in the shadows and who's talking. Yeah. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, the important thing is M11 follows Jimmy Woo. Jimmy Woo is like, if you're gonna blast him, you gotta blast me. And then he like turns off his blast, and he's like, if you could do me a favor, please stop broadcasting what we're doing to the Yellow Claw. Yeah. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, sure. All you had to do was ask. But also M11 has footage from the failed Woo mission. What? He just has it, and he had it all along, R2D2 style, just hiding in there. And we also like open up a back panel, like, oh my god, this robot is also made by Atlas. Oh my god,
which is great really because Marvel Boy, he's like, Marvel Boy, did you ever notice who made this thing? And he's like, well, it didn't mean anything to me 50 years ago.
Yeah. So then they go to the original site of the mission. So this is all actually 24 hours later. Kanata is testifying at like a SHIELD thing. And it's just him. And he's telling them about how all this went. They went to that original mission site where they were going after the Atlas Foundation. They saw how, because like in this video they were watching, they saw they had to say the word Temujin as a password. And Temujin is the real name of Genghis Khan, which is like, kind of that thing that's been coming up. Real names are the key. And there's like talking about who these people are. I guess somebody's name is Master Plan, and then that was the keyword that opens everything up. And they make it down to this big temple thing, and there's a big explosion, and there's fire, and everyone is dead. Only Kanata was able to make it out alive to tell SHIELD how all of the agents of Atlas died, which is just a bummer. He gets a promotion, though. He has to move to San Francisco, and, that's kind of just how it is. He gets in a car that picks him up, and he gets a little message while he's, in the video. It's on the video monitor in his car. It's all a lie, baby! Woo! Agents of Atlas are okay. They're not dead. Kanata's lying. I did like it. I thought that was pretty well told, and I was like, it didn't work. What? But no, what happens is Jimmy Woo takes action just in time, and he puts up a shield that saves everyone from the fire. And this fire is coming from Mr. Lau, who we find out is a literal golden dragon. It's just like a big dragon. Cool. And he's existed forever.
Full-page gold dragon.
Yeah. He has existed forever with the goal of bringing back the Mongol Empire. And
sure.
He has set everything on its path to get this to happen. He is the one who sent Ken Hale to get cursed as Gorilla Man. he is the one who something and etc. etc.
Made the robot.
Yeah, he made the robot, and he did all this in order to get Jimmy Woo to assemble this team. I presume they didn't mention it directly, but he must have sent this dream to Jimmy Woo to assemble this team together. And it's all because Jimmy Woo has the blood of Genghis Khan. And he is to be the next heir because they have the staff of Temujin. And if he takes it, he will take charge of the Mongol Empire. His parents knew it. They didn't want Jimmy Woo to do that. They fled to America. They wanted no part of it. They said, go to law enforcement instead. And then, okay, I think this is my favorite part of the book. They wheel out Golden Claw, a.k.a. Master Plan, I guess is his real name. And he is like in a bed with like, IVs connected, and he's like old. And he's like, oh my God, Jimmy, I'm so happy to see you. You did such a good job on all the adventures. Oh, I love it. And I'm like, what? This has been the main villain of the book.
Since the goddamn 1950s.
I love it's such a like he's just been putting on this show to get him here to like take over, and he's like, oh, finally my job is done, I'm so glad I got you.
Such a good twist.
I love this one. And he's like, oh boy, I had to build up so much strength to do that part where I was with the clay statues on Fiji, but like, oh, it was good. And
I like too where he's just like, I knew we had to make Jimmy Woo like a hero, so I became like the most offensive stereotype of a Chinese villain so that people would make you the hero, Jimmy Woo. But it wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough. They forgot you. They ignored you. He didn't get to be a hero. Jimmy Woo. Oh, they also mentioned that he made M11. They have no control over him. They don't understand him. They're just like, we don't know. He's a human robot. Don't get it. But Wu decides he is going to take the staff and use the power for good. And then Golden Claw's like, great, my job is done. And Mr. Lao the dragon swallows him whole. And he's like, don't worry, this is how it's always been. It's fine. The backup for this issue is a letter from Golden Claw. And it's titled, A Congratulations to My Successor to be presented after my death. And it's just like, it's just a nice letter to Jimmy Woo. I love it.
Yeah. Then I do like before before he gets eaten by the dragon, Jimmy Woo goes to reach for like the battle standard or whatever, which is on fire. It's like permanently on fire.
Oh yeah.
And he reaches out and he's like, ah, and he's like, I thought you said I was like the chosen one of destiny. And then Golden Claw is like, I never said fire wasn't gonna burn you.
yeah. Like you just tough it up, man.
Yeah, like you just gotta grab it, dude. Like just it's yours. It's gonna hurt. Yeah. And so he does grab it, and then that's when Golden Claw's like, "Well, my work is done," and then gets eaten by a dragon.
Yeah. Wow. And that's we get a couple of little epilogue moments. We have on the way home, Kanata gets a phone call from T'Challa, the Black Panther. And he's like, hey, T'Challa, I was just thinking about, the Mongol Empire. Hey, doesn't my name mean something about, like, the Khans? And Black Panther's like, hey, you know what? Actually, they did come to Wakanda way back when, and they helped us out. Kanata means, like, friend of the Khans or something like that. Like, all right, cool, great. Then we also see M11's origin from his eyes, which is a really nice moment where his creator essentially gave him the gift of life by giving up his own life, and he is just a human robot. It's a nice little moment. It's hard to just describe it and how it went. It's just sweet.
Yeah, which M11 is probably the least developed character because he was only, he's literally like a Marvel monster. Like he was a robot created by a scientist to kill a guy, and then he runs off into the ocean at the end of the story. Like it's one of those one and done, like Twilight Zone type stories we've done in the past.
Oh, Marv.
And so that's like where he comes from. Like I thought it was really cool that they tried to develop M11 as like, no, he is like a person. He can't talk. He can't like communicate really, but he is able to make decisions and do things because he has like a human intelligence given to him.
But that is the Agents of Atlas. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's good. I don't think I loved it as much as y'all. I thought it was a little too self-serious in points, but it's very swashbuckling. I don't think it reached the heights of like a gorilla holding 4 assault rifles at the same time in that first issue. But it's a good, solid team. What could? Yeah. Yeah. I think
it is good. Like, go ahead.
I think it is good though. Like, I think it's a good timeless comic. You don't have to know anything about Marvel or what era it was in to be able to be like, hey, this was fun.
Timely was the 40s, Vince.
Sorry.
Atlas is the 50s.
All right.
No, it's good. I think Marvel gave them like a legit try. Like, there's a ton of Agents of Atlas relaunches, and they never last more than a year.
I think it's hard because they are so outside of time. Like, what do you do with these characters? They do sort of the first thing they do with a regular series is run them into like Avengers versus X-Men and Dark Reign and all that stuff, which I think kind of is less fun than this, which is just table setting. You know, like if this had been in the 70s or 80s, they would have given them 2 years to like find their own pace, but Marvel just threw them in and like, look, you have to start teaming up with the things we have.
Yeah.
I don't think that quite works as well.
Yeah, and then by like the 2019 relaunch, it looks like they just found every Asian or Asian American character and just put them all on the same team, which kind of, I think, defeats the spirit of Agents of Atlas.
Yeah, more like Asians of Atlas.
It was like Amadeus Cho and a few other characters.
What is Amadeus? Amadeus Cho's like a child. Why would he be?
Yeah. I mean, like, I get what they're trying to do, but that's the thing is, like, so many team books are just like, let's just throw these 5 characters who aren't doing anything together and see what happens. And they don't work for me rarely. And somehow Agents of Atlas did work for me. And I'm not exactly sure what the secret sauce was. And that What If issue worked for me really well. So,
yeah, I think it's that they have this hero, you know, you have these heroes they are all existing and saying like you have this continuity you don't know about is very like intriguing.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like, oh, like there's like a secret, you know. I think that's a better way to kind of go with it is to have this like secret hero team, which they do kind of try to set that up as a status quo at the end of issue 6 where Kanata's like, no one can know you guys are alive. You know, you're going to be like under the radar. That doesn't really go forward. But I do, you know, I haven't given my thoughts. I do like this book a lot. I think it's really strong. I don't think anything after this really holds up quite as well when they get reintroduced into the larger Marvel universe. But I think that's more a failure kind of 2009 Marvel Universe, Secret Invasion era Marvel.
Secret Invasion, what is it? Siege.
All that stuff sucks. So it's kind of hard to have like a new IP that's based on 50-year-old characters that's actually good. So I don't blame it. It's a lot of fun. And again, Gorilla Man's so great. Like this is a character that. This is money on the table. Like, I don't know how Jonathan Hickman hasn't put him on the Avengers.
Like, I know that when they
he rules.
When I do love talking gorillas. I know when the Flash TV shows, like we have Gorilla Grodd in our season finale. I'm like, I'm on board. Let's watch this Flash TV show.
Got it. You gotta check it out.
It's got talking gorilla. Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna not watch that? No.
Yeah. I love this scene when Nomura starts fighting Hale or Gorilla Man, and he's like, "Fine, kill me. You become the gorilla queen of Atlantis."
You will become the gorilla. Oh, that's a good defense. That's a good self-defense.
He's so great. So a lot of fun. I enjoy this series a lot. I do kind of think it's a shame that it never really paid off beyond this series. But this series is good, so I recommend everyone to check it out. Although, is all of it on Marvel Unlimited or only some of it?
Their tagging seems fucked up. Like if you go to like tagged with Agents of Atlas characters, like it's missing the 2019 series. And then I think there's one series called Atlas, not Agents of Atlas. A lot of it's written by Jeff Parker too, so like just to fuck with you.
They had a series that lasted like 8 or 10 issues, and then they had a second series, and then they had the 2016-17 whatever it was, Secret Wars relaunch. Anyway, that's Agents of Atlas.
It looks like it's well enough threaded, though. When I finish this issue, it says, "Do you want to read X-Men versus Agents of Atlas, or Agents of Atlas versus X-Men, whatever?" So at least it threaded that way to like point me to the next series at the end of Unlimited. So, which is what I asked for Unlimited to do, to like tell me like what's the next series, because it may not be alphabetical.
Yeah.
The only thing that I was going to say about all this that I haven't brought up before, and it's like it's not actually pertinent to what happened, but I did get some like Sentry vibes from all this in terms of like I was kind of thinking, did any of this actually happen? Is all of this just like in Jimmy Woo's memory? Is there something weird going on that's like it felt like everywhere they go, the bad guy shows up. So is it connected to him in a different way? You know, I don't know. I got some of those vibes. I don't know if y'all felt any of that.
I see where you're coming from, but I do think this is a stronger version of the Sentry, because the fact that everyone has their like 50s characters, I didn't think that this was all going to be like just bogus and like thrown away, because it's like, no, this was all part of Marvel before. So it's not going to be like Sentry where they're like, oh, we all forgot about you because of the thing that made us do that. So I see where it's coming from, but I do think it's a little stronger because it does have sort of the, you know, you don't have to read. I mean, I read some of them because they're fun. You don't have to read those 50s comics to get like where it's coming from. And I do think it's a cute, you know, the fact that there's so many companies named Atlas and that's what ties it all together. You know, I thought that was cool. So
yeah, it's very cute.
It rewards fans like me, and it's fun for fresh folks like Kia, and only folks like Vince who are in between are less slightly unsatisfied.
Slightly, only slightly.
Jeff Parker did write a Sentry miniseries though in 2008 also, if you're interested.
He did, yeah. That's a good miniseries. Romita Jr. does the art for that, I think.
It looked like Paul Tobin.
Oh, does he? Maybe he just does the covers.
Yeah.
Maybe I already read it. I don't remember.
Age
I don't know.
of the Century, I think it was. I just closed the window.
Yeah.
I'm not going
the like 60s flashback series. Yeah. So anyway, we should talk about Spider-Man.
Yeah, we should get into Spider-Man. We're going long here. All right. Amazing Spider-Man number 12. Oh, the issue we've been waiting for. We see Peter Parker unmasked on the cover. Oh my God. And it's Doc Ock here. Whew, let's jump right into it. All right.
Spider-Man is Peter Parker?
So J. Jonah Jameson has pissed off his new secretary. She's running away crying, and thankfully Betty Brant is back. She's got to get to work now. She's also
hired
happy
a new secretary because she went to Philadelphia for a week.
I think she quit to hide her gambling debts. I don't know how.
Maybe she did.
Yeah, she might have been like, I don't know when I'll be back, you know, that sort of thing. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll hire somebody else.
Yeah, that counts as quitting in the 60s.
I think so.
Crying as you run away.
Meanwhile, Doc Ock from last issue is escaped. He's still out and about. He's committing crimes everywhere, and he's doing it on purpose so that Spider-Man will attack him again. He should probably do it in New York if he knows anything about Spider-Man.
I mean, Spider-Man went to Philly, so like he's like back.
That's true.
I mean,
that's true.
I think he was causing crime all over U.S. He's like, wherever I go, Spider-Man's gonna show up. This is fine.
Yeah.
This
is fine. You're right.
And
I mean, it seemed like it was happening before when he was in Philadelphia. Spider-Man just showed up.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I also want to establish. I mean, you had mentioned last issue that Doc Ock had a really nice suit on. Now he's in his like dopey green outfit.
Yeah. He's back in his lab duds.
You're not even in a lab, man.
Just wear normal clothes under your. Yeah.
I don't know. Meanwhile, the Daily Bugle has printed a picture of a spider to show how dangerous they are, and how Spider-Man is just as dangerous. And the other kids are gathering around this newspaper, and they're like, "Hey, Peter, what do you think of spiders?" And Peter is like, "Oh, I can't let them be onto me." And he's like, "Ew, spiders! I hate them. They're so gross." And then everyone's like, "Oh, Peter, you're such a wuss." And then Peter, in his serious monologue, gets, "You'll all be fucking laughing later after I
maybe Peter, like you'll all pay." And then he's like, "How about that? I sound like a teenage Billy Graham," which I don't know if he's making fun of Billy Graham or he's aspirational towards Billy Graham. I'm thinking it's the latter.
Yeah, I think he's realizing how far he's going as like his peer persona. He's like, man, I sound like a real asshole.
And teenage is also hyphenated too, so.
Yeah, that's right. Who's the like
acting
character?
worse.
Stanley pulls out a long dead character later.
In this book?
Yeah, when he's like, "Oh, I'm just like so and so," and I looked them up, and they'd been dead for like 15 years.
Oh, really?
Okay, I don't think I caught it. We'll see. So Peter is okay. No, wait, hold on. Sorry, I'm checking my notes. We're good. Doc Ock makes a creepy call to the Daily Bugle so that he can confirm if Betty is working there. It's really creepy. Doc Ock, why are you doing this?
Hey, is
At
Betty
the end
there? Hey, is Betty there?
It's so weird. And at the end of the workday, Peter shows up to like pick up Betty, but then Doc Ock busts in through the window and like carries her away King Kong style.
Yep.
And he says, send Spider-Man. Also send a photographer to take a picture of me beating up Spider-Man.
That whole panel is great. It's got Jameson and Parker like flying backwards. Like it's a great panel. It's like, oh, they're the same. It's like, yeah, send a photographer also. We want to document this.
Oh man. And so, Spider-Man. Oh, okay. So of course Jonah Jameson says, Spider-Man, you're going. Spidey is feeling kind of weird. He's got a cold coming on, and he can't stick to walls like he used to. Okay, might be trouble.
This is very forced in this issue.
It's very. It came out of nowhere with this cold. I'm like, all right. Fine.
I mean, I think
Much like the flu.
Yeah,
that's true.
At least in the Spider-Man 1994 cartoon, he had been losing his powers for a few episodes before this.
It had been slow. Yes. So also, J. Jonah Jameson is like, I can't trust Peter to go get these pictures. I'm gonna go to Coney Island too. I don't know how everybody gets to Coney Island so fast. But like the idea is J. Jonah Jameson is going to print an urgent edition that summons Spider-Man to J. Jonah Jameson's office, and so Spidey has to. Peter has to dress
when all
up.
You have is a hammer.
Pretend.
Every problem looks like a nail. This is the only way to get all the Spider-Man. Is to print a whole extra edition of a newspaper. God knows how much that costs just to get Spider-Man to come find his secretary, who he yells at anyways.
But like, at least save a step and say, Spider-Man, go to Coney Island. Don't say, Spider-Man, come to my office and I'll tell you where to go.
No,
you already know it's Coney Island.
Because you can't tell the cops, because the cops read that.
Oh, you're right. Okay, thank you. You're right. You're absolutely right.
No prize to Vince.
We do well, no, because the cops get mad at J. Jonah Jameson later. They're like, you knew? Why didn't you tell us? You could like set up a trap, man.
Yeah, this is all within Jameson's logic. I'm on board.
Yep. So they get a nice little fight down there. Oh, it's a very brief fight because, of course, Peter has this cold. He gets beaten easily. And then they unmask Peter right in front of the cops, J. Jonah Jameson, and Betty Brant. And nobody believes it. He's really Spider-Man.
What's hilarious is that he's been Spider-Man for a year. And Doc Ock is like, Betty Brant is the key. I will kidnap her. Spider-Man will show up. Yep. And he's right. And then
he's been in a quarter of Peter's adventures thus far.
Yes. He easily defeats him and then unmasks him. And they're like, Peter, you tried to save Betty.
Yeah, they're like, oh, that was so sweet of you. But also, that was so dumb. You're just a weak child.
He's lucky he never shut off one of those web shooters at all. He didn't try.
Yeah. Oh man.
That
he's real.
Everything real bad.
Yeah. Maybe he did, and they just forgot, and they didn't notice. I don't know. So Aunt May is of course upset with Peter as he says, "Don't worry, Aunt May, I'm burning the costume." But all the kids at school, they start to think that Peter's a little bit cool. Even Liz Allen, not interested in Flash anymore. Her ex-boyfriend, she says, she just thinks Peter Parker's the coolest. Peter's gotten some confidence as well. He's like, sorry, Liz, I don't got time for you. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I do like to, in his like fever dream, Spider-Man appears to him. That's a great scene. Like that's some weird Freudian stuff where you're like being yelled at by your alter ego who's like giant.
Yep.
Which fever dream was this?
Whose fever dream? Before the Liz Allen scene.
Yeah, before the Liz Allen scene, Spider-Man shows up and like, "What are you, some kind of nut or something?" Like yelling at Peter for failing.
Oh, yes.
That's good stuff because you're like, good. Wait a minute, what is happening? Like, what's wrong with you, Peter?
But I mean, that's I mean, this sets the tone because I feel like this happens a lot. I know it's in the Spider-Man cartoon, and it's definitely like when like Venom suit starts showing up, that like the suit is personified in his dreams. So I think it's pretty consistent. It's cool that this is kind of setting the tone here.
Well, and I think this is kind of the first time it's happened that like Spider-Man is a separate persona.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
It was around this. It was around this point that I was like, maybe we do want to read another like 12 issues of Spider-Man for our long read. But then the back half of this issue, it gets to be a lot more of like kind of a random fight.
That's how all of these are. Like literally, if you go to any of these things, I'll be like, we're on page 9, guys. And then counting the cover. And then the back half is just a fight. It's one long 10-page fight.
Well, this one is two different fights.
This one's weird. Yeah. So Doc Ock lets a bunch of animals out of the zoo.
Yeah, sure.
And they're like just instantly in the middle of the city somehow. I don't know. They're like climbing up walls and stuff, climbing up buildings. Fine. Peter's got to like, beat up a lion and a gorilla and whatever. Not as entertaining as Gorilla Man, but
his
still,
gorilla,
technically
Ditko's gorillas. I don't want to tell Ditko how to draw gorillas, but it's not good.
Yeah, not the best. No,
not the best gorillas. Too bad.
Yeah. So this is where the reference I mentioned. So I think the police officer says, "Boy, that Spider-Man is a poor man's Frank Buck."
Yeah,
have either of you ever heard of who Frank Buck is?
Nope. I passed right by it. I was like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah. So died in 1950. His Wikipedia picture has him wearing a safari hat, like he's in the movie Clue. He was a famous animal hunter, like big game hunter.
So if I made like a Steve Irwin reference or something, like in a comic book today, that's what.
Yes, today. Yeah, that would be about right. Where you're like, oh, the guy who died like 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I could reasonably see that reference happening. Okay. Well.
Yeah, that's who the police officer is referencing that I Googled because I was like, who is this? I was thinking of Joe Buck. I was like, is his dad like around?
Joe Buck's dad was famous though.
He was. He's a famous announcer, but that's not who they're talking about.
Okay, too bad. This fight keeps going on. They go all over the place, a whole bunch of buildings everywhere. They bust through the ceiling of a deserted sculptor's studio, which has giant statues everywhere.
That does feel like Ditko trying to show off a little bit, that he's like, no, I can do backgrounds.
Yes. They knock over some cleaning liquid and everything gets set on fire. I'm not quite sure how, because I don't think the liquid would just catch on fire on its own. I don't know what caught it.
Sure, why not?
Sure. The statue falls on Doc Ock during the fighting. The flames get too hot for Spidey to save him, and he's like, I can't focus on trying to save this criminal. I just got to go. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So
I do like Stan Lee's dialogue here where he's like, I can escape through any window, but you'll be trapped by some falling sculpture. He's like, you won't talk your way out of this. And then a sculpture falls on him in the next panel.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Wow. Thanks for explaining what's going to happen, Stan.
The fight scene, there's not much to say about the fight scene, but it's still entertaining in the sense of Spider-Man is just like having a fun time talking about everything. It's just like, there's nothing to remark about, it just kind of happens. Yeah. He says he likes, thanks for flagpoles. We were talking about
he gets out of a fire with using his powers. Good for him.
Good job. That's just, Liz Allen now wants to date Peter Parker, and he says no. He has a bunch of money for all the pictures that he took, and it's a happy ending.
And he says, I have to meet a certain brunette. And Flash is like, why that, Chromie? He's like, how dare you date another girl? Yeah.
Well, he also made fun of Flash by saying, like, hey, enjoy all your one syllable answers to every question for hanging out with that dummy Flash.
Blam.
got him good. But that's the first year of Spider-Man. I'm glad we got a happy ending to end things off with here. I mean, we've talked a lot about it as we've gone through all these issues, but any final thoughts over everything that we've read?
I mean, I'm glad we read it. It was different than what I expected, but it was good. I've always made this argument that I could read like any Sherlock Holmes or any Spider-Man story, good or bad. I'll enjoy it at a moderate level, and I think that holds true. That these were all like really well done. It's weird it's good. It's interesting to see like what was already established by this point. Like a fair amount of the like consistent rogues gallery, like Lizard, Sandman, Electro, who else? Dr. Octopus are all like still like active in the comics and in the movies 60 years later. It's kind of impressive that way. But it's also weird.
Human brain.
Everybody's
Constantly.
I liked that one issue with Mr. Big or whatever that dude. I liked that issue.
Yeah, it's the Enforcers.
Yeah. But
go ahead.
But at the same time, I'm kind of surprised like the things that weren't there, like the Osborns aren't here yet. Peter doesn't have any friends. Our friend Mike, who was here last time, was weird that like Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane have nothing to do here. They don't exist yet. But I like Betty. I really like Betty. I think I
like Betty a lot. Yeah,
I do too.
I've read some other stuff from this era as well, and I was kind of reading it all like in continuity with each other. And it's weird when you see it doesn't stand out as much when you read them one on their own, but it's clear that Stan Lee, like, if his mind was on something, then his mind was all over it, and it would show up in multiple comics. And I'm thinking about this now because I'm thinking about Chris looking up that guy whose name I don't even remember anymore, but he was a famed big game hunter.
Frank Bakken.
Do you know what Kraven the Hunter's first appearance was?
2 issues from now.
Yeah. It's definitely coming up. Yeah.
I mean, like the next issues are like Mysterio, Green Goblin, and Kraven the Hunter. It's kind of incredible.
So it's kind of crazy, but we've read enough of the Spider-Man for this show. I think if people want,
Chris, I know you guys have already read this actually before. This is the first time I'd ever read it.
I think it's good to go back to it. I read this as a kid, and I don't know that I'd actually read through all of it before recently, because I don't know, like Ditko's art is very, I guess, divisive, and it's funny reading those letters pages. Like it is divisive even at the time. Like some people seem to love it because Spider-Man's such an interesting character, and some people are like, this is kind of ugly looking.
I think all the Spider-Man stuff is great. I think a lot of his human figures have fucking weird faces.
Yeah, like I think that's kind of a regular and pretty fair criticism, that he has some weird ticks where he makes regular characters look really strange sometimes. But it's good to go back, especially knowing now a lot more about like the Marvel method and everything. I mean, I think it's fair to say that Ditko has at least a co-writing credit as we would consider it now. Yeah. Like he is plotting this, and Stan Lee is more editing and putting dialogue on it. That's kind of more his job. And so it's interesting to see, like, I mean, Doc Ock is kind of, it's so funny. We've talked about his like objectivist stuff. Doc Ock is constantly saying like objectivist stuff, like put in his mouth. And you're just like, that's so weird, because like, does Ditko want this to be what this character is, or is this like a joke on him? So it's really interesting going back to it and rereading it, kind of knowing. I think it's all great. I mean, I think it's a reason that Spider-Man really took off, is like this stuff is really good, especially comparatively to like what was coming out, like the rest. I mean, if you read, and I've tried to read it, Stan Lee's Avengers from around this time, it stinks. It's like the issue 5 when Captain America comes back is fun, but almost every other issue is really bad. So like this is more or less just like fun. Like it's more of a like Batman level like crime type things where he's only fighting like criminals. He's not fighting, like super scientists or whatever. And he's more of a like street level guy, but without it being ridiculous. I don't know. I just feel like this is such a good kind of story engine of like Peter growing up, and then as he's growing up, he's like, running into all these villains.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I can agree with all that. It was especially I have read a lot of these. I've read all these way back when, but yeah, reading it again in conjunction with some of the other stuff from this era, it does feel different. It feels like a step above, where they knew Amazing Spider-Man was their best, and you could just like, I don't know, it just has this magic to it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've heard y'all say like, especially I think y'all may have even said this last issue or last episode, like talking about like Stan Lee's other '60s comic books. Like Fantastic Four is good, Spider-Man is really good, and then Captain America and Iron Man and Hulk and Avengers are all kind of like a lower level, and Daredevil is bad.
Well, you know what it is? Fantastic Four, I think, was like his debut album, and he had all these great ideas, right? And then he kind of runs out of fun stuff with the other team books until he's like, all right, I'm gonna go different. I'm gonna do a solo book now, and then that's Spider-Man. So that's when the magic came back.
Cool.
How it goes.
I'm glad we read it. I'm glad it was a good pick.
Yeah. Anything else to say about Spider-Man before we reveal what we're doing next?
I'm good.
I hope one day Puny Parker makes a friend.
I hope he goes postal and just completely. No, I think isn't that the.
There's books. There was like another kid got powers at the same time or some story. I remember it was like Spider-Man. Dan Slott wrote it. It was like, what if Spider-Man turned into an asshole, kind of, and just kept going on that path. And I'm like, he's here. He's still that way on these books.
He is.
Yeah, I thought it was very cool. I haven't read that much of Spider-Gwen, but I thought that was such a cool idea that like, Gwen gets bitten by the spider. Peter is like this weirdo who gets lizard powers.
Yeah.
And then, Gwen kind of has to redeem this like weird nerd. I thought that was very cool.
I love that they put that in the Spider-Verse movie and didn't explicitly say anything about that.
Yes, you just see it in the like images of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, all right. So next time for our regular read, we are doing Andre the Giant, Life and Legend. We're doing a wrestling book. Isn't that
a good
exciting?
wrestling book? We've been looking at a lot of bad wrestling comics, but we decided to do a good
we don't want to do that. We're gonna do a good one. It's by Box Brown, aka Brian Box Brown. Might be going by a different name now. This is from 2014. Just a kind of histo comic. Is that what you call those?
Bio comic? I don't know. It's
Comic.
nonfiction, which is going to be weird for us. But
have we ever read any nonfiction?
Not for this show. I mean,
not for the show. I mean, in real life, maybe.
So I don't know. It's like I don't like this plot twist with Andre's life. Like, we're gonna have to get over that.
Yeah. We are also going to start our next long read, which is The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck by Don Rosa. We've read some other Duck books in the past, but we are reading, this is one of the great ones, from 92 to 94. And it has been collected in a bunch of different collections, reprinted multiple times. It originally took place in Uncle Scrooge comics, number 285 to 296. But it is sort of the history of Scrooge McDuck and all of his adventures and how he gained his riches and his fame and all that kind of stuff. And
it actually tries to assemble like his real timeline from the Carl Barks comics and all the comics written like in the 30s and 40s and 50s and whatever. It tries to put them like in a real timeline.
Yeah, so I believe there will be references to a lot of all that old stuff as well, and trying to make it all work. We might recognize some of it from what we've seen, but we haven't read a ton of that stuff, so we'll see how it goes.
It's in print.
Yeah. It's in print. I own a copy of it, and I don't think I ever actually read it. Did I ever read it?
I've read about the first 4 issues. It's very dense, which is why we are doing it as our long read, like one issue at a time. Because I don't think we can read like 6 issues of this. In one episode.
And each issue is kind of like its own adventure, so it should work well as a one and done kind of deal.
I think it's like him growing up in the Scottish Highlands is like the first issue or something. It's good though. DuckTales, I think, is over. Kia, you joked that we were doing Darkwing Duck. There is a Darkwing Duck collection of all the Disney Adventure comics of Darkwing Duck that just got published. Their comics are also on archive.org. You can find them in the same way that we found our Metroid comics if you just want to read Disney Adventure magazine.
Wow.
All those magazines and comics, yeah. So, yeah.
Well, all right. Good to know. I think that's it for now. So, yeah, next time, Andre the Giant and the first part of Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. What else is going on? Boy, back to school time's coming up. Things are crazy. I got nothing. What do y'all got?
That Was a Game doesn't have a new episode right now. I'm still the Wario World is the most recent episode. I'm still working on deciding what I want to do for my next episode. Although I will put a short plug out for our friend Mike on his Games My Mom Found podcast. He talked about having Blair Farrell on his podcast about Spiderman. And I wasn't sure who that was, but I went back to my bookshelf and I was like, oh shit, I have that guy's book. It's called The Avengers in Video Games. It's literally he did a write-up, like a multi-page write-up of every single appearance of an Avenger in a video game. So we're talking about like Iron Man and Exo Manowar, and because that was Iron Man's first game. But he wrote even like shit like the Marvel Superheroes, Superhero Squad, which is like the kiddie version, like Infinity Gauntlet for like Wii 360. Even did a multi-page write-up on the DS game. It's literally like, if you like my series, That Was a Game, where I look at like licensed games and like forgotten spin-offs of video game series, like he fucking went deep into like every single bullshit Marvel game that ever existed. It's a really incredible book called The Avengers in Video Games. So I highly recommend that book if you want video game adjacent comic book stuff. It's really fascinating.
Great. Chris, what you got?
We are doing a episode of Your Stupid Minds this month. It is DMX. It is Jet Li. They are recovering stolen property, and it's basically a series of Grand Theft Auto missions. You also have Anthony Anderson and Tom Arnold doing comic relief. What movie is it? Google those people and find out.
That's not Double Team. I'm thinking of Dennis Rodman and Dane Cook. What is the DMX Jet Li movie?
That was Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, damn. I Googled it, and I can't believe I didn't know it was this.
Is it Exit Wounds?
Nope.
It is...
That's
Wait a minute.
Cradle to the Grave.
Are there two movies? There's two movies with DMX and Jet Li. There's also Romeo Must Die?
It is Cradle to the Grave.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, we are doing Cradle to the Grave. It's a lot of fun. It's a very silly movie, but it's a lot of fun. We enjoyed talking about a classic action movie that has practical effects and is set in Los Angeles, very clearly 2000s Los Angeles. And Jet Li fights a bunch of guys, including, friend of our podcast, maybe friend of this podcast too, who knows? Tito Ortiz. He was in Crow Wicked Prayer, which is a former episode. We were very upset that he's resigned his city council position in California after his pro QAnon election. But he's in this movie. He's in it for like 30 seconds. He fights Jet Li.
And the Iron Chef is in this? It looks like he's
Tony Jaa.
No, Mark Dacascos?
No, Mark Dacascos. That's the right one.
Yeah.
Mark Dacascos
from Double Dragon and John Wick 3.
Yes, he's the bad guy. Apparently, and we talk about it a little bit on the podcast, he won a poll to fight Jet Li. We don't know if that's true.
What?
This is amazing. I love the first review on IMDb says, good for what you would expect.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, very good. Well, I got nothing. It's time to go to bed. It's late. This is a good long chonker of an episode here. Vince, I love you.
Very dense. I love you too. I love you like Venus loves people. I had a quote, but I forgot it already.
That was a lot. Chris, I love you.
This is nuts. Kia wouldn't give me a tumble before, but now he's following me around like a lovesick calf.
God, everybody's saying so much here. This is not a typical ending here. I don't know what the endings are off the rails.
There was a great line in the What If issue that said, it was like, it's the 1950s. Most everyone liked Ike, but everyone loved Lucy.
Jesus. All right. And listener, with Love you. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.